Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 129 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm here, and as usual, I'm with my partner in crime, Mr. Byron Jabara. How are you, Byron?
Gary, I'm doing great. Excited about this week's interview with Dan Koval. Excited about, we've got a good article and a good quote as well. And we've got another language learning segment at the end of the show with our buddy Claudio. So we've got a lot to do this week.
Yeah, I've noticed, I think our first episode with Claudio, teaching us some Portuguese words was very, very well liked. We got some good feedback on it, so definitely make sure you listen to the end of the show, and Claudio will be giving us another lesson this week. Okay,
Gary, last week's show was outstanding. We had a great time doing it. You and I were having a ball, and Bruce had a lot of cool information about the way he teaches class. But you know what happened in last week's show that we dropped the ball on?
I know what happened, and I was actually kind of happy about that.
Oh, you didn't even remind me.
Nope.
You got out of it. Nope. So every week at the end of the podcast, Gary I'll make him talk about some audiobook. He has no idea what it's going to be about, and that he's going to be
throws that out there, and I have to figure it out on the run. I was actually kind of happy.
Yeah, I think with the audiobook, with the Portuguese segment, I just slipped my mind, and I have. So for sure this time it's back. Definitely. We didn't get rid of that segment. We only add segments on the show, guys. We don't get rid of anything. Eventually this will be a 3-hour deal. But
I owe Claudio one for that.
Yeah, you got out of one, Gary.
Me up. Yep.
But not twice in a row. My mistake. Yep. I'm sorry to all the listeners who expected Gary's segment to come in at the end of the show. Don't worry, my friends. It's back, and it's going to be strong this time.
Uh-oh, I'm getting a little nervous there.
But super happy. Dan Koval, he's got this, he has a DVD called Black Magic Closed Guard. And he's a big proponent of using the closed guard. It's not a super new DVD. If what he says spikes your interest about the closed guard, check it out. He's a super knowledgeable guy, and you'll learn that. I don't need to talk much about him before this, and he doesn't really plug his DVD, so that's why I want to do it now. But a lot of great information on the DVD from the looks of it. I haven't seen it yet, and I'm definitely considering getting it. I think working on my closed guard would be a good area for me to work on. The good gi and no gi game, and I think that this might be one that I get next. So definitely looking into that. So if what he's saying is ringing a bell with you, the Black Magic Closed Guard DVD, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. I think it'll take you to Budo videos probably, But just keep that in mind when you listen to him talk. He does have an instructional out there that's available.
Yeah, so definitely, check it out.
This is Future Byron here. After Gary and I recorded this segment, I decided to drop Budo Jake a line and ask him if he would be up for giving us a discount for the Black Magic Closed Guard DVD. He said yes. So the coupon code is BJJ Brick, all one word, all lowercase. Gets you 15% off Dan's Black Magic Closed Guard DVD. I'll be getting one here in a little bit. Excited about that, and thank you for Jake for doing that. It's not a affiliate link or anything like that. Just a way to help you guys out if you're interested in picking up that DVD. So coupon code BJJ Brick. So if you're interested in it, we get save a few bucks. So thank you, Budo Jake. One more note about the interview. I don't know what was happening. I think it was a Skype thing. About every few minutes, it's like a second, maybe a second and a half of silence. And from what I could tell, I've already edited the interview since recording this, obviously. But no content is actually lost. Like, if you were to miss 2 words in this sentence, you probably could still figure out the sentence. But it's kind of a weird deal. And now that you know about it, there'll be a second here or a second there of missing, just blank audio. I don't know what's up. Sometimes Skype does some weird things like that. But all the great information Dan is communicating is there, and I feel is still intact. So just heads up on a couple audio cutouts throughout the interview, and not a big deal. It's just, try to present the best show we can, and Dan definitely presented outstanding information, but some of the little bit of audio cutouts, not a big deal. So heads up on that, my friends.
Yep. Speaking of some outstanding information, you can check BJJ Brick out. We're on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We're on Instagram. You can always talk to us on email, bjjbrick@gmail.com. So check us out on social media.
Yep, and if you want to check us out, we don't have a book in the library you can check us out at, but we do have an audiobook that is a real audiobook. Unlike Gary's audiobook that he'll have this after the end of the show here, we have an audiobook called Your First Year of BJJ, and it's $11.99, and all the money goes to help keep this brick floating in this podcast world here.
Wait, how do you keep a brick floating?
You take $11 and you slide it underneath the brick. And in theory, it's made out of wood, so we'd have to sell a lot of books, which we don't sell a lot of audiobooks. But maybe you buy wood and you prop it up and hope it's not too wavy in the water. But it just helps us, and it's a nice way to show some support to the show as well. And it's $11.99. Basically, it's me right now talking to you in your headphones for about. It was about 2 hours long or so.
About
2.5 hours, about how what to expect and some things to deal with during your first year of training. The big goal is to get you past that first year with success and enjoying it and into doing it for the long haul. So hopefully it's a helpful book, and it's definitely helping us out with the support we get from you guys. So much appreciated every time we sell a book. And check it out. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. And also, it could be available in an inbox near you. How would they get that inbox?
Speaking of inbox there, don't forget to get on our email list. We have a link to it. And get on our email list, and that'll give you a link to the show every week. So that way you'll never miss a show. And you always have a smile on your face every time you see the show. But we do not spam your inbox, so don't worry about that. We're not spammers. So you got nothing at all to worry about. We don't sell your name to anybody. We just want to get the show out to you once a week.
Every week, and every week we also get a quote out to you, my friends. And this quote this week is...
we got a doozy from Heraclitus. Not sure if I pronounced his name right, but I'm just going to call him Heraclitus.
I'm looking at the word, and I swear Gary's reading it right.
Heraclitus. I mean, what else could it be besides Heraclitus?
Oh, Gary. Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
Yep. But the quote this week from our buddy Heraclitus: "Men who wish to know about the world must learn about it in its particular details."
But I saw this quote. I thought it was so good, but now I can't get over his name. And I apologize. We probably have at least one or two listeners out there with the same name. It's just foreign to me, right, Gary?
I bet we got a lot more than that.
With the name of Heraclitus.
Yeah.
Anyway, so men who wish to know a lot about the world must learn about it in its particular details. This tells me that if you want to learn, have a broad knowledge about things in the world, which is a nice thing to have, it's a good way to have an understanding of the world around you. You do need to dive deep in a couple of different topics, and I think that this helps just learning in general. And I think many people listening to this are considering or have already done a deep dive, a deep learning about jiu-jitsu. And I could tell you from my experience, learning what I have learned about jiu-jitsu, not that I have a huge understanding of it, but it's helped me learn other things. It's definitely helped me on my job and understanding how physics works sometimes, and how a game plan is a good idea, and understanding the way some things react, and staying calm under stress, and all these things. But if I just learned a little about jiu-jitsu, I don't think I would have been able to transfer any of my knowledge over to what I do on the fire department. To learn a lot about it, a lot of things, you need to definitely learn, or to learn a little about a lot of things. It's also wise to learn a lot about a couple of key subjects, and I'd advise you to consider jiu-jitsu as one of those.
Yeah, and the thing think about jiu-jitsu, there's just so much to it. I mean, Byron, you're a black belt, and you will probably tell anybody that, boy, you're still got so much to learn. You're just a little tip of what you learned. And think about as time has went on from when you first started training. You may have learned an armbar or a kimura or how to pass a guard within your first month. But think about all the little details you know now and all the little details you're learning about that same particular move you learned in your first month, and so many things that you didn't really understand about that particular move. You just, let's say we're doing a kimura. You may have just known how to grab the arm, grab his wrist, put your hand on your wrist, and twist the arm back, and you're like, hey, I did a kimura. But now, as time goes on, you learn all these little things that make the move even better, things you have to do to set the move up, and I'm always learning so much more. And I thought I knew the move, and like a year later, I've learned so much on that move. I was like, boy, I didn't know that move at all, and it just keeps getting deeper, and I learn at a deeper level of each particular move, each concept, and it's never ending.
Yeah, there's always more techniques to add, not like numbers wise, but a deeper understanding of the techniques. Yep. And why they're working, and I think if you realize that in jiu-jitsu, you'll realize that in many other things as well, and that's one of the many benefits jiu-jitsu's provided to me, is just the understanding that things go deep, and I can't understand everything at that deep level. There's too much to know, but I could pick a couple of things and I could learn a lot about them, and I could get a real enjoyment out of that and a benefit from that. So I don't know if Mr. can't even say his name.
Heraclitus? How do we know that's a guy?
I don't know that. That's true. But I don't know if this person trained at all. I would probably guess not. I don't, because I don't know anything about them. And just statistically, it's probably an old quote.
I mean, does Heraclitus have is that the first name or the last name?
Gary, I don't know.
It looks like a first name to me.
Somebody would name their child this. But man, we're losing all of our fans with the Heraclitus name this episode, Gary. But we'll
I don't think so. I bet our listenership will increase 10 times over this.
There we go.
Yep.
10 times in that same community of the Heraclituses.
Yeah, we should get a patch that says Heraclitus BJJ.
There we go. There's so many patches we could do and options out there. We can't go that deep into all of them. Of course, we have to learn about a lot of things. I don't know. Gary, I'm just talking like crazy over here. I think it's time for the article, buddy.
Yeah. I think we should get on to the article of the week.
Thank goodness for that music, Gary, because it's moving us right along to the article of the week. If you go to Goulburn Martial Arts Academy.squarespace.com or go to the show notes in your email box or on the website, and there'll be a link right there for it. This was a very nice article talking, just kind of touching the topic of bullies and what kids are going through. And this is often, last week we talked about kids in jiu-jitsu. We really didn't get much on the topic of bullies except for like a little bit of confidence building. But a lot of times kids will show up in jiu-jitsu because they're having bully problems. And as coaches and as fellow training people, as adults training and other kids, it's good to know this. And it seems like everybody has gotten bullied. Even Gary, I would imagine, had somebody who picked on him when he was a kid.
Well, yeah, I've had a lot of people pick on me lately because of these audio books that you keep throwing out for me.
That's true. And this is I kind of bully you sometimes, but we do it as friends. But in reality, sometimes bullying is really ugly and it goes way too far. I mean, it's for kids will get picked on sometimes, and a lot of times they can brush it off and move on, and the other kid moves on fine. But sometimes the bully's super aggressive and really just ruining another child's life and just going all out to make.
It's just so tough. I mean, the kid's being bullied. His quality of life. He doesn't want to go to school. And what happens is a lot of times just compounds. So one kid sees a bully, picking on somebody, and that kid joins in, and the next kid joins in, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And boy, I don't want any kid to go through that, and nobody should have to go through that.
Yeah, as adults looking at it, it's so terrible. As kids, they just join in without thinking about it sometimes, or the main bully a lot of times will have problems of their own that they're dealing with at home or in a different part of their life.
And this article just talks about how to help the kid out who's in that situation. Talking to the school, having discussions with the teachers and the principals, but also let the kid know that you're there for him. We're in your corner. I even like the author talks about, even if you're not at my school, if you leave my school, I am still in your corner. I'm here for you, anything you need. And that's just so important to know that somebody's got your back, somebody's there to help you out, somebody's going to try to get you through this.
Yeah. The article also mentions that it's important to build resilient people. And I think that jiu-jitsu could help build resilient children and people. And adults get bullied too, Gary. I mean, people in the workplace can get bullied and other aspects of life. But this is kind of just geared towards children. But just building resilient people is an important thing. And unfortunately, I'm all for any kid, being whatever kind of kid that they want to be. But some kids seem to just kind of like draw bullies in and just have from one, if they move middle schools or high school, like they still get it, like something about them that bullies key in on, and they get picked on. It's unfortunate, so, but building that resilience is an important thing that jiu-jitsu could maybe help with.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about what jiu-jitsu does for you. I mean, the self-defense aspects, the fitness aspects, but, just like you said, that resilience. I mean, you show up to class every day. You get put in uncomfortable positions. You get put in bad positions. It's a tough sport. And to survive through it, to just keep going and just keep learning, all with a smile on your face, you're going to be resilient. You're going to realize that, I can get through anything. And you just keep going.
Yeah. One of the big things about bullying nowadays is that they can't get away from it. So there's social media, you get picked on there. You go to school, you get picked on. And there's no time that your bully isn't able to just wreck your day. You're not ever, out of it. You know what I mean? At least, I remember getting picked on a Friday. Well, at least I'll have 2 days off, and then I got to deal with
now with social media.
Yeah, those 2 days, you still get beat up over, you tore up online and, getting beat up online, really. But in reality, most of bullying is mental. You only get beat up so many times.
Sometimes that's worse. I mean, it's brutal. Like you said, it never stops.
So I think when a kid walks into jiu-jitsu, it is an escape. Thank goodness. I would hope the bully's not there, and if a bully and the bully's victim are in the same school, that's something the coach needs to deal with right away. But Gary, I just realized we're doing another article about kids. It's going to be a long segment, but I think jiu-jitsu is a great escape from getting picked on. And as an adult, as a coach, as a training person, as a person on the mat with any, white belt with a stripe or any white belt the second day, being nice to that kid who's having a tough time is a good escape, because it's hard to escape from those bullies. And I think that's why it seems like suicide rates sometimes are going up with bullying because of the cyberbullying, and they don't want necessarily to not be alive. It's a lot of times that they're looking for an escape is a big reason for suicides. And that escape can be jiu-jitsu. I mean, they don't need to go use jiu-jitsu to beat the bully up. They could have a great 2 hours on the mat and get out of it, and know that they have friends, these adults are nice to me. They're good people. And they think I'm cool, and they think I'm a fun person to be around. So what? I got this jerk named, Gary or Byron or somebody who picks on me all the time.
Or Heraclitus.
Heraclitus. We're being a bully to that guy. But in reality, let that be a total escape. Give them that confidence. Let them know that you think that they're a cool person, that they're worth hanging out with, they're worth teaching and investing in. And huge differences can be made on the mats with bullying, not just learning how to hold the bully down and against their will. Because a lot of times the kids are a lot weaker, or have something that's physically holding them back a little bit, or maybe that mental block about being able to defend himself won't get fixed in the first year of jiu-jitsu even. But knowing that they have an escape while they hit the mat, they're going to love jiu-jitsu. They're going to love that environment. And if you're training jiu-jitsu and you get some weird kids, oh, this kid's a little bit weird, that's probably the kid who's not going to tell you they're being bullied, but that's a good one to buddy up with and try to bond with.
Yep, that's awesome. I never thought about, like what you're saying, escape for 2 hours. I was thinking more of, the lessons it teaches you and plus the self-defense aspects. But I think you're on a great point right there. And I think of how I like jiu-jitsu. When I go to jiu-jitsu for 2 hours, it makes me forget about all the stresses I had at work, all the problems at work. And I just forget about everything. And I'm just, start afresh. And when I'm done, like all my problems that I had before, I just forget about them. And it's like, it's no big deal. And I never thought about the bullying aspect like that. Like, hey, I'm at a place where everybody likes me, where I'm having fun. This is great. Nobody's bullying me here. Just, I got a great coach and great teammates. And I just now have 2 hours of great time where, I'm not worried about social media. I'm not worried about anything else. And I'm just loving this.
Yeah. And I also try to look at the other side of bullying is that the kid who's bullying probably has a crappy home life. I mean, I don't know this as a fact, obviously every kid's different, but for a kid to just want to pick on somebody and make their life miserable, there's usually something else going on there. So it's so easy to see a child getting picked on and just hate the other, like, oh, that jerk. You can't just believe it. But in reality, they go home to something probably just as worse a lot of times. So it's just
I tell
bad.
my kids all the time, if they see a kid being bullied in school, I want them to all of a sudden become that kid's friend. I tell them if you see a kid that's at lunch and doesn't have any friends and is all by himself, eating by himself or on the playground by himself, you go over and play with that kid. And if I ever hear about either one of my kids bullying somebody, we're in a bad situation. It's something that I personally think is one of the worst things in the world, bullying somebody. I mean, there's more effects than just, it's far-reaching effects. It's going to mess with you for a long time, and I just can't imagine any poor little kid who doesn't want to go to school, who's afraid to go to school, or I mean, I just couldn't imagine seeing a kid without not having any friends, just going to school and not having anybody there to play with, and I just hope my kids grow up to be good people and treat people with respect and courtesy. But the biggest thing I want them to do is if they see a kid who doesn't have friends, I want them to go over and friend that kid. I don't care if they don't have anything in common. You're going to find something in common, and just make that person feel welcome.
Yeah, and that's the same thing on the mat that we were talking about. Especially as adults, you could a lot of times kind of, if a kid's a little bit like you would think that they might be bullying, or I guess any kid, be friends with them. I mean, kids need that support, and an adult friend is so much different than a peer friend, but it's still a good relationship, and it can be that escape that they need, the way to feel like they're a valued person, and that they're not being picked on, and they're actually having somebody around them who likes them and likes to be a positive thing in their life. So.
And right at the very end of that article, there's a picture of a coach and a softball player, and there's just a really good quote. A good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. And what's more important, winning the game or changing a life? Changing a life or making somebody's life better is the most important thing.
Yeah, and to remind the kids that the thing that says that every day's a new day and things change. So. Nobody has to bully their entire life. I would hope not. That would be quite the thing. But it's not a permanent situation you're in your life. It's going to change. Get through it. You'll become more resilient from it. And if jiu-jitsu helps you with that, definitely check it out. There we go, Gary.
Awesome article. So definitely check out the link to it.
Yep, we'll put a link to it in the show notes, my friend. I think we're ready to check out what Dan Koval has to offer us. Tons of great advice, and it's fun learning about him. He's an active competitor. So here we go, Dan Koval. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He went to prison for transporting a huge amount of jiu-jitsu across the border, hidden in his gi. His grandkids could roll before they could crawl. He has never swatted a mosquito that was biting him. It's not that he doesn't want to. It's just too similar to tapping, and that's not in his nature.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Dan Koval to the BJJ Brick podcast. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited to get to know you better. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself to get us started?
Yeah, sure. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt that trains and teaches here in New York City. I'm very fortunate to train under Marcelo Garcia right in Manhattan. I also teach in Manhattan at a gym, and I also teach in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is right over the river for people who are not familiar with the New York City area. I know it seems a little confusing at sometimes, where everything is located. Everyone, when people think of New York City, they think Manhattan, but there are quite a bit of neighborhoods in the general vicinity that are relatively close that people actually go to besides Manhattan.
And when did you get started training?
I got started training in jiu-jitsu, and I was 20 years old. Okay, so more background information about me with regards to training, so on and so forth. I started judo as a child, and I played judo, and I was super excited about judo. My older brother was involved in hockey and in karate, and ever since I can remember, I was fascinated. When I say fascinated, I can't really articulate how much I really was into martial arts when I was a child, but I really enjoyed the grappling aspect of it. And where I grew up in upstate New York, the middle of the state, hockey is king. Hockey is the true king. But there's strong wrestling as well. But unfortunately, I went to the only high school in the area that didn't have a wrestling team. So my parents, by deduction, were like, judo is probably the next best thing. And it was perfect. So I jumped into judo when I was a child and played judo forever, going up through high school. And then when I was in high school, I was so discouraged by the way that judo was being scored as a sport. I felt like it started becoming subjective more as a definitive end. You'd throw somebody and you wouldn't get the points. You wouldn't get the ippon that you were supposed to get. And there's too many reffing decisions. There's too many other people. There's too many third parties deciding exactly what happened. So I wanted to do MMA because MMA was big. And I remember I didn't even watch the first UFC when it first aired. I was a relatively young kid when it first aired in '93. But I'd always found that fascinating as well. So I started fighting MMA when I was still in high school. It was crazy. My first MMA fight was in Griffin, Georgia, of all places. I was still in high school. I flew down to Griffin, Georgia. And there was some guys on that card that ended up playing in the UFC, and Diego Medeiros, the younger one of the two, was still with Alliance at the time when Alliance wasn't even Alliance. Just moved to Atlanta not too long prior to the event, and his team was still called Masters. And there was Diego Medeiros. There was the Singer brothers that ended up fighting. I can't remember. Roy Singer was still in like some sort of college, and then he ended up going to nursing school. He fought on the card. And I was like a 17-year-old kid fighting on the card. And then after that, I got into jiu-jitsu, and I've just been into jiu-jitsu ever since. It's just been one of those things.
And what eventually brought you to Marcelo Garcia's?
What eventually brought me to Marcelo Garcia's, long kind of story that I'll cut as short as possible. Marcelo met the guy that I was training with in upstate, Ken Cronenberg, is the guy that owns the school upstate, and they met each other at Abu Dhabi, the ADCC competition in Brazil in 2003. And Ken had brought Marcelo up. I think he was the first person to bring him to the United States for a seminar. Marcelo barely spoke any English, and I remember meeting Marcelo way back then, and then just over time, Marcelo had done, and I'm almost certain of it, has done probably twice as many seminars at Ken's school than anywhere else. So we kind of got to know each other over time. overtime. And then, as luck has had it, my future wife was living in New York City, and she was from the area that I grew up in as well. And then Marcelo was down in New York City, and then I was like, listen, I'm probably going to move into New York City, and when I do, I'm going to train under you, and that's how it worked out. I'd known him forever. He'd been coming up. He'd been training with us any chance that he would come up and do a seminar. First, I rolled with on my brown belt. There was a long history of him just coming to training. So it was getting to know him over the years, and it was knowing somebody that I was comfortable with their style of jiu-jitsu and their mindset, and someone that I could look at and say, not only is this a great person to learn from, him being a instructor, a coach, someone as a figurehead, but also a great training partner. He and I are literally the same age. His birthday's the day before mine, and so more or less he is physically, in the same generation I am, so on and so forth. So it's really nice to have that age peer to be able to discuss things with. So he knows what you're going through, not only just physical manner, maybe a lifestyle change, and so because you're kind of going through the same things, you're married, your kids, the whole 9 yards. It was an easy decision once I was able to make the move. It was definitely something that it was a no-brainer for me.
I like how you say that almost the same age. It's nice that you could discuss things with instead of compare with. To me, that's a big difference.
Yeah, and I think that goes a long way for a lot of people. And I think there's maybe like a new way of doing that. I think maybe even you see it with the Mendez brothers and some other guys who are kind of stepping back from competition a little bit, and they're really focusing on their students instead of just being this. In martial arts for a very long time, it didn't make a difference what you were doing for the most part. You always had this older gentleman, even going to a boxing gym or a Thai boxing gym, wrestling coach, judo coaches, so on and so forth. These guys were older figureheads. They were maybe a generation of their, the large populace that made up their gym. But nowadays, especially with jiu-jitsu, you're seeing contemporaries, and even wrestling. You're seeing collegiate wrestling. Gal Sanderson, for example, and whatever. You see these guys going into coaching sooner, or at least coaching right alongside of being active competitors. And that really, I think, it helps not only with the maturization of their student base, but they can relate on a lot of different levels. They're not standing back and going, well, back in my day, this is how we did it. They're going through a lot of the same growing pains as a human. So the compassion level is there, the understanding level is there. They don't put themselves above anybody. In a lot of ways, you find that they're still on the same wavelength with you, in more ways than you might have found in the past. And I've trained under considerable amount of people in judo, and everyone has been great. That's not disparaging, the generations prior who were older. That's no one's fault. But I think to an extent, it is a benefit having someone that is a relative similar age. They are able to relate to you a little bit more, and they're able to be involved in the sport on the same level maybe you are. So their finger might be on the pulse a little bit better. But again, you see even older jiu-jitsu guys who are involved that are still teaching and training right alongside the guys. So they're still making a concerted effort. I think jiu-jitsu in and of itself, that whole jiu-jitsu lifestyle that you always hear about, I'm not the biggest fan of that term, but I do really appreciate the fact that people that take it to heart and do it in a way that's really positive, and that what they do is that when they say it, they mean, listen, I'm going to live a healthy lifestyle. I'm going to be, regardless of their age, I'm going to lead by example, live well, teach well, compete as well as possible, and that goes a long way. And you find that, again, I most certainly found that in Marcelo and the other people that we have on the coaching staff at Marcelo Garcia's Academy.
Yeah, an amazing environment that you're in. Could you tell me a little bit about your grappling style or the type of game you like to play?
I really appreciate both sides of the coin. You'll have people talk about, I'm a guard player, or I'm a passer. When it comes to jiu-jitsu, I really don't have a preference. I have been known to use my closed guard. People talk about it. I have an instructional about it. There's a long list or fingers pointing to the fact that I like to play guard, but I really don't have a preference. To me, it's all the same because jiu-jitsu, especially sport jiu-jitsu, is supposed to be an end game of catching the other person in submission. And to kind of pigeonhole yourself and be like, I can only do it from this way, I feel is kind of limiting not only yourself in your ability and your skill set, but also in the fun of it. I really enjoy jiu-jitsu just because of the problem-solving aspect of it. It's more or less, people always compare it to chess. I always compare it to some sort of riddle or some sort of puzzle that you have to put together. It's always evolving. It's changing. It's something that there's a lot of different things that are the same all the time. So you might have like a feeling of what do they refer that to as like a deja vu, I think, or something like that. Like something very familiar every time you go to train, but then there's always something different. So even if you train with the same people every day, people offer you a different set of, and again, I think if you only played like the bottom or the top, I think you lose that. So to me, I try to be as well-rounded as possible. I really enjoy playing a closed guard style on the bottom or half guard, but on the top, I really like the pressure and try to smash and really get in there and be physical as possible. Because again, you're participating in a sport that it really requires a lot of, coming to someone's personal space and the physical nature of that. And I really appreciate how much effort that takes and type of fighting spirit that brings out of people. And and again, I think by playing both and not really allowing yourself to be just like, hey, I can only do things from one position or one spot, I really think you're limiting yourself. I try to embrace both, and I don't try to be like, I can only feel comfortable here. So one of those things, people like to pull guard, I'll go for takedowns. Again, with a strong judo background, I don't mind starting from my feet. If I get taken down, I don't mind playing from the bottom. I just go from there.
I think that's one of the nice things about being an upper belt in jiu-jitsu is that hopefully you have a game that is going to be strong in all places. Did you have this type of style of like to play anywhere, top or bottom, or like your entire jiu-jitsu career, or did this start at a certain belt level when you really started appreciating both aspects of the game?
That's a great question, and I would say that it probably changed around black belt, to be honest with you. That's 100% honesty, because looking at it from my perspective, I was coming from judo, coming from mixed martial arts, or going into mixed martial arts and still being involved in that world and thinking to myself and getting into jiu-jitsu, I'm like, why do I want to be in jiu-jitsu? It's result-based, meaning submission-based, like I'm looking to finish. So there's not that third-party bias or third-party like judge case scenario. I get taken down, put on my back. So let me get as good as possible off of fighting from my back, because if I'm in the worst-case scenario, whether it be self-defense or MMA or whatever have you, I'm able to competently defend myself, competently be able to fight for my back. And that's really where my focus was at first. I was like, I'm going to get really good at, fighting from guard, and really, I'm really strong, so I can stand and throw punches or not be afraid to wrestle for takedowns from the feet. That was I think that's a lot of times people get concerned about that. They're worried about giving up position on their feet, and they really want to be in a certain place, so they pull guard to try to set in motion an algorithm of A to B to C to D, where I was more concerned with, like, listen, I'm just going to go for my feet and see what happens. And time just clicked by. Like, time just passed by on the calendar, and before I knew it, I was blacked out, and then I was like, I'm really neglecting a large portion of the whole point of jiu-jitsu. It's, passing, being on top, that Carlson style of fighting, that like get the takedown, pass, punch, submit, that whole style is really, really, should be really strong in everybody still. It should be. I think it should be, at least. And I think it's a really excellent way of going about being a competitor. It doesn't make a difference what your reason for being at practice, whether it be self-defense, exercise, just you enjoy the sport, whatever. There's so much to be said for that, and it's a lot of fun. And it's tiring trying to pass the guard. Is great for exercise. It's great for mental toughness. The act of attrition. Great guard players are a nightmare, and I think that's away from that sometimes. Passing the guard is exhausting. It takes a lot of work. You get your face beat up. You get the side of your head beat up. You get your head smashed. You get elbowed. You get kneed. You get all this crazy stuff that happens to when you're trying to pass guard. There's a little bit of aversion to it sometimes, I think. But at the same time, it's so rewarding to do that. I again, kind of going back full circle, that I was missing that until I got, to black belt. Because initially I started learning, hey, I want to do jiu-jitsu because I want to learn how to be the best, in the worst situation, basically.
That's very interesting, and I think that's common for a lot of people to have a strong preference early on. I can remember myself as a purple belt. I wanted to be in the guard on the bottom. That's how I wanted to play. And to the point, looking back, that I didn't work on my sweeps as much because I didn't want to have to pass somebody's guard to get to a good spot because I liked my guard. So it wasn't until I got the idea that passing the guard is fun, passing the guard is something that I'm going to be good at, then my sweeps got better. I was holding back on that aspect of my game so I wouldn't have to do it. I try to submit all the time to my guard. So what about the closed guard are you attracted to so much?
The closed guard, to me, it is to me, it's the essence of what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was all about when it first started, like becoming its own separate sport, its own separate martial art. It was all intended for the weaker. Everyone's heard the story. I don't have to, go over that. Like Helio was sick, blah blah. Smaller, weaker. It was intended to give the person who was put in a bad spot on their back the opportunity to fight back, whether it be sweeping them to mount so they could punch, or finishing a triangle choke, or finishing an arm lock, or whatever it is. If the opponent has to deal with you and basically the full weight of you, because you're attached at the waist with your legs, and then you can be clinching, you can be doing pummeling with your arms. So the person basically, it's basically grappling from your feet, but on the ground, on your back. And I think a lot of people miss that. They don't really put those two and two together, that a lot of the same principles, whether it be judo or wrestling from the feet, can be applied to jiu-jitsu, especially if you use closed guard, head position, pummeling your arms, getting underhooks, getting a clinch position, and using the angles, using those same principles that have always been there, regardless of what we've called grappling, because more or less the rules dictate it. All of it's grappling, whether it's wrestling and judo, jiu-jitsu, sambo, so on and so forth. The rules dictate the difference. But the principles are a common theme that run across all of them. And I think closed guard really allows you to put all of those in the best application without giving up too much to the other person. Let's say you're going with someone who's a really quick passer laterally. Okay, they're very quick right to left. If you slow them down, put them in closed guard, they're not so quick anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like if they have to stand a pass and they put them in closed guard, they have to stand up. Again, they're bearing your weight. So it's not as easy for them just to stand and pass anymore. There's a lot of things that just playing the closed guard makes it difficult for the person on top. Now, you always hear the other side of that argument. It's like it's very difficult to get people in closed guard. Well, that's your job. Whatever type of guard or whatever type of style you want to play, it's your, and again, this is something that I've learned over it's your job to force your style on the other person. Like, you can't worry about what the other person is going to get to work. Like, that's the whole premise of a combat sport. It doesn't mean be reckless, but it means, it's an act of attrition. You have to fight to get what you want in that situation. So you have to get there. That's the reason I like it.
I enjoy the aspect that it's a solid gi guard and no gi as well. And since I'm always training both, and I want to be able to train, kind of have a theme for a month or even half a year, I could work that guard and train that every day, that I'm able to be on the mat. I don't need to skip it because today I'm doing no gi. I can't do my closed guard. That's one thing I really enjoy about the closed guard, and that you kind of mentioned before. It's kind of like one of the original things about jiu-jitsu, and looking today, there's things that pop up all the time in jiu-jitsu that are kind of new. But for me, as a passer, the closed guard always gives me trouble.
Sure.
What? Okay.
Sure.
Help me out a little bit here, because it does give me trouble. I tend, when I'm in someone's closed guard, I tend to kind of slow things down on purpose. A lot of control of the biceps, a lot of trying to get posture. What could I do? Because I feel like I'm just kind of grinding to a game where where they get to make the first move almost, instead of me starting the pass. What could I do as a top player to get things started a little bit better?
There's a question you have to ask yourself when you're in someone's closed guard and you're on top, right? How do you want to pass? Am I going to pass down on my knees, or am I going to stand to pass? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. Now, whatever your answer is really dictates what happens next. So let's take, for example, you want to pass down. Okay, so you're going to stay down. You're going to stay heavy on them. You're going to create pressure. And when you stay heavy on them, you create pressure, you have to still create an angle. Because if they're square with you on the bottom, but they have an equal opportunity to attack both sides. So what you have to do right away is you have to start picking a side, and you have to start flattening them out. So you have to force them to a hip. So once you force them to a hip, then you can start looking to break their guard down on that one side, whether it's with a Sao pass, whether it's with hands in the biceps, trapping their arm, whether it's a litany of things, just putting pressure with your forearms down so they open their guard so you can get a double underpass, whether you force them to open so you can force to top half guard and pass their bottom leg. You have to start creating that pressure, and you have to do it by putting them at a disadvantage, by bringing them to a hip, putting them at an angle that's very uncomfortable for them. They're not really prepared to attack from there. Or even if they are prepared to attack, let's say you bring them to the side that they prefer to be on, right? Because the guy in the bottom is looking for an angle as well, so he has to get to a hip and a shoulder and a side of their body so they can attack. But even if you bring them to that side, you're being proactive. You're the one attacking, so now they're being reactive. So now they're playing basically catch-up in that situation. So I think going into that passing, I'm going to pass someone's closed guard, the first thing you need to do is go, I'm going to pass standing or down. Okay, I'm going to pass down. And I'm going to bring them to the side of their body. And then once I'm on the side of their body, to a hip, now I'm going to start doing whatever pass that I want to do. Whether it's a Sao pass, like I said, or whether it's putting pressure down so they open up their guard. Then you can get double underhooks. You can stack pass them, or you can get to force them to a half guard position. So then you can work your top half guard passes. I think making it very simple in that respect. People might say when they hear this, they go, "You're simplifying it too much." Well, what else are you supposed to do? What type of convoluted game plan do you want in a situation where guys just there's really not much else you can do except for creating a plan of action and starting to attack. I think a lot of times hesitation in those situations or trying to get cute, it really puts you in a bad spot because, like we just discussed, I think it's a good position for the person on the bottom. It's a good position to control. And the longer you let them work, the more difficult it is for you to get out ahead of them. So you might as well start pushing the pace, and you might as well start pushing your game on them as soon as possible, whatever it is.
Does that work on the other side of things? With if you're on the bottom in the closed guard, it's you take the initiative, you start pushing the pace, and you start going to work
immediately. It shouldn't even be something that you that you think about. So, the big thing now is like people talk about drilling, right? They talk about drilling to make things second nature, and they don't talk about the rationale behind it really, or you'll hear the catchphrase, drill to kill. The reality of the situation is they're trying to make that movement secondary, so it's subconscious, so there's no conscientious thought, so you don't have to look at it, and you don't have to go, okay, I got to put my hand here. You're doing it so your body has muscle memory like a golf swing. You have dexterity and feel in your limbs, your appendages, you're ready to go, and you just go into it. I think that's a large role of it is, drilling it really lends itself well to it. I think trying things conscientiously in practice really helps even more so. So instead of just taking a look at it and going, hey, I'm just going to drill this a bazillion times and just let it go from there, which I don't think that's just what people are doing. Don't get me wrong. I don't think people who are just drilling in the corner are just going, hey, I'm just going to drill it and never try it. That's not it at all. But I think your time is well spent if you split it. Like, listen, I'm going to drill this, and then I'm going to immediately go right into practice. And not only am I going to try this conscientiously, but by doing so, I think it allows you to start seeing the pacing that needs to take place to get better at things. Because as you're trying something, there's a little awkward period. You're fumbling about a little bit. You're like, well, that's not really working as advertised, or I'm having a difficult time, mitigating distance, space, trying to figure out what's the best place to put my hand. Because as I discuss with other people when we're talking about techniques, like, hey, I like to put my hand here in situation A, but if you feel more comfortable doing it, like putting your hand over there, say, just as long as it's not fundamentally incorrect and it's not going to put you in a bad spot, there's nothing that says you shouldn't do it. So I think going after it in practice and really pushing the pace, even on the bottom, it lends itself tremendously to your learning curve. And you become much more better served for it because now you have a timing that you didn't have prior. Because I think when people drill, they drill maybe at a little different pace. And I think when you're drilling with a non-resistant opponent. So when you're trying it and you're conscientiously trying it in practice and you're pushing it on people, it speeds up your ability to deal with timing and your pace and what reality is going to happen. You know what I mean? Like people's reaction. And then you can start getting, you hear like a lot of times people refer to high-level players like, oh, he knew what I was going to do 2 steps before I did it. I always tell people it's not necessarily true in the respect that they're reading your mind like a clairvoyant. It's true in the respect that they've done it so much that the reaction from people is so common, it's really down to maybe 1 or 2 choices. So they kind of know how you're going to react because they've been doing it for so long. And you're really not giving them a different take because statistically and experience-wise tells them most people are going to do this. And people are going to react this way to it. So they're a step ahead of you just because of their experience level. And their experience level comes from them trying it in practice and then doing it in competition and then so on and so forth. It creates kind of like a circuit, like a loop. And that's really how people, you see these guys who, some guys get a bad rap, like, oh, this guy only does leg locks, or this guy only does... No, he doesn't just only do that. He's gotten really good at that, and he starts to attack with it, and it sets up a chain of events. That's just how it ends. They're so or she, that's how it ends for that female. Like, that's how it goes. It's not just that person is specialized only in that one thing and they can only do that one thing. You hear a lot about that now with these guys who are excellent at leg locking, like Gary Cunnin and Eddie Cummings and like these other guys who are really high level players that, people try to discredit them with these, ridiculous statements like, hey, they're only good at that. They're not only good at that. Like, you have to be kidding yourself. Yeah, you only see them do it, but they're doing it because they're so used to setting down this path of A to B to C. They see people how they're reacting, and that's what they're getting from it. They're just that much farther out ahead. So again, kind of coming back around, I've went way past what you asked me. Yeah, you want to attack, you want to force it on the person from the bottom, and that's how you get good at it.
It seems like you're mentioning that they're it feels like they're a step or two or three ahead. I think an example of that would be that they're taking you down a path that they've been down many times. And on the path, there's different forks in this path, but they've been down all of them. So it doesn't matter which one you go, which options you give them to take. It's common. It's a well-known path that they've been down many times, and you might be a bit confused, but they aren't. It's their path.
Yeah, exactly. 100% accurate.
And so, like learning closed guard or really any guard, there's so many options that somebody's going to present to you, and as you hone the skill of closed guard, you're going to know what to do when they put their right leg up, when they use the right hand to do this, when the left hand does this, when they counter you this way. All these things you start to build a system that addresses all these issues. It sounds like.
Yeah, correct. That's 100% accurate. That's exactly what your hope is. I would suspect, because at least I know from an athlete perspective, my perspective. That's what I'm trying to ascertain. Like, I really want to have a tried and true set of skills that have been battle tested that I can count on, that I can start at A and I know I'm going to end, somewhere along this line of techniques. Like, I'm going to do this, and the person's going to do that, and if that doesn't work, then I'll go to the next thing. And then if that doesn't work, I know they're going to do this, and I'm going to go to the next thing. And that's really how you build your game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you there. You mentioned when we were talking about like kind of getting to know you a little bit better, you started judo as a kid, and now you're teaching jiu-jitsu. What advice would you have for people who are thinking about starting their kids in jiu-jitsu?
Really allow your kids to enjoy the fact that they're with contemporaries, and that they're learning something that's valuable. And when I say that, I mean, like, people should try to take the time and speak to their children about what they're learning, how it should be applied, the realistic nature of the sport. Don't take for granted that we're here and having fun and everything, but you are learning something that can be really lifelong, and don't put pressure on yourself. Like, so if you want your children to compete, I find it soccer mom, you see soccer mom, quote unquote situations in every sport. People pushing their kids too much or pushing them too hard, and they want them to compete, and the kid's kind of like on the fence about it. Let the kid dictate to a certain extent, what they should be getting out of it. But at the same time, you should really speak to them about, like, hey, we're really spending time on something that you could get a lot out of. This doesn't have to end at the end of high school. This doesn't have to end there's no expiration date on this. We're doing something that is a lifelong pursuit, and we should take it as that. It should be fun. Some days you might not want to go as hard as possible, or then just enjoy it. Work on something else. Just let the kids. They call it martial arts, and I think the art part of it is the person's interpretation. Push that on kids more than anything else. Let them be creative in that atmosphere, because you hear all the time. Children are kind of like boxed in with all these tests at school now, and public schools and schools in general are set up to get kids ready for just testing and moving on to the next thing, and all of these sports and extracurricular activities like music and art are kind of being marginalized. If you have your child in any sort of martial art, especially grappling, which allows them to be so creative with their abilities and their just trying to discover different types of things, let them push that on them as much as possible. Again, they're not being goofy and not doing the technique right, but have them be like, yeah, try that, do whatever, like, enjoy yourself. That's big. That is one thing I think jiu-jitsu, because I think you find it in judo, especially in different countries. Judo is such a huge sport. It's I think still to this day, it's the second biggest sport behind what we refer to as soccer and the rest of the world refers to as football, participation wise. Judo is huge, and it's very competitive, and they're very, very staunch and stern about it in certain countries, and they take it so serious. In wrestling, we kind of take it seriously here because there's a next level to it that helps people with their life, college and so on and so forth. So listen, hey, wrestling can be a really great, way of getting to the next level. So you see, like, people take it super seriously, and they suck the fun out of it. But I think the kids who have the most success going forward are the ones, and no matter what sport it is, are the ones with the parents that really go, listen, we're going to do what you want to do out of this. We're going to work hard, listen to the coaches. We're going to take in all the constructive criticism possible, but we're going to really get something out of this because we're here. Our time is valuable. We can never get today back. Let's enjoy it, and let's spend it away doing healthy activity. And I think that goes a long way. I think putting the focus on that is much more beneficial than a lot of other things.
Yeah, you said a lot there with the kids and, ideas towards competition and ideas towards focusing and not, like the way kids are being brought up today with the technology and stuff like that. They're used to getting stuff like right away, and I think jiu-jitsu helps kind of combat that a little bit. Things don't work right away all the time. Did you compete when you did judo as a kid?
Yeah, I did, and there was a ton of tournaments growing up, and I don't feel like there's as many anymore. I didn't compete as much as I would have loved to, but there was the Empire State Games in New York. There was multitudes of just local judo tournaments. There was the AMCAMs, they were called, in Western New York, and there was a lot of things. And you would see that, and you would get to go, and that was sometimes the most interesting thing is you would interact with people in different walks of life that you wouldn't get to normally run into in your small community, and that was always fun. And the biggest thing that I took away from competing, even as a younger human, was you're there to get better, and that's still the reason I compete today. I'm a little older. I'm not 20-something, but I'm not, 50-something either. I'm mid-30s, and you have some people that don't do any sort of combat sport, and they kind of look at you and they're like, why do you keep doing this stuff, outside of, being a huge part of your life? Like, why would you compete? Like, they understand, going there for exercise, but they're like, why would you go through this? Because they know how stressful it is. Like, you're cutting weight, and you're preparing, you're sacrificing, you're dedicating a lot of your time and your energy to compete. And they look at you and they go, why would you keep doing this? And the answer's been the same for me since I was little to now. It helps me get better quicker because this is the closest thing to a realistic situation that we can get to where no one's getting arrested. So that's the best way of getting better. It gives you a great bell curve. When you win or lose, the medal's secondary. That thing goes in a box in the closet in this household. Like, we don't have anything displayed, regardless of the event, because it doesn't help me for tomorrow. That's gone and done. Yeah. The result is not necessary, the necessary end game to it, but it is the lessons learned are really important. That's why I still like doing it.
I'm amazed that as a kid you had the attitude that I'm here to get better and not wanting just the win. I'm thinking of, I've told people that about jiu-jitsu tournaments, that it's an experience that in the long run you'll be better for, win or lose. And if you think about, you did MMA starting at 17, that's crazy, but the judo tournaments made you more prepared for that, I'd imagine. And I don't know if you ever had a confrontation on the street or any sort of somebody come after you, but the MMA could have prepped you for that a little bit more. Would you rather, win a judo tournament or do well in your MMA or lose? Which one is more important to do well in for you? And then take that to the next extreme, self-defense. Which one is more important to do well and to come up on top on that? And in the long run, living a healthy lifestyle is one of the big victories that you mentioned the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, living this active lifestyle that we have is a huge benefit that we have. So
yeah,
there's
100% accurate.
There's many things to win. Go ahead. Sorry.
Say it one more time.
There's many ways you could be winning, whether you're winning or losing on a tournament, or not competing, or doing MMA, or any aspect of this. There's a lot of ways that it could still benefit you.
Yeah, man, you're 100% right, without a doubt. And I think that's something that's really important that kind of gets pushed to the wayside with so many people trying to jockey for the spotlight of some sort. There's a lot of that. Like, hey, I won this tournament, I won that event, I won that, and it's like, listen, it's not to disparage or discredit people that are doing well in any event, because all of us that have competed know how extremely stressful it is. If you family of any sort, you have a spouse, you have children, you have a job outside of jiu-jitsu, which 99% of people that do, you are responsible for so many other things, and then to take on the responsibility that you totally did. No one's forcing you to do it, but you're just like, I'm going to do it. It's so nerve-wracking. Everyone knows how it goes. It pays dividends because it really makes you better if you decide to do it. And that's why I try to focus on, like, listen, I tell my students and anyone that will listen when we discuss it, just focus on getting better. I don't care if you win this medal. I don't care if you win it. I don't care. Like, just get better at jiu-jitsu and just get more confident in the fact that you can defend yourself in a high-pressure situation. Someone comes after you, like you had said, like on the street or something like that. Listen, reality-wise, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I you know what I mean? It's like, and people always talk about, like, a sport jiu-jitsu guy is not going to be able to defend himself. A sport jiu-jitsu guy, even at the lowest levels for the most part, if they're being trained right and they're training right and they're putting in time and they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing, it's going to be able to defend themselves on the street. But let's be real.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be. Like, I find that I kind of find that a little ridiculous when people try to discredit people's ability in jiu-jitsu because they're not body slamming somebody. Like someone maybe for to pull guard. Let me tell you, like, almost everyone can out clinch, Joe the barfly and take him down if they've been training jiu-jitsu, or a guy who's trying to attack them, or whatever the situation is. They have percentage-wise, they have a much greater rate of success defending themselves than they would someone who doesn't train. And that's, again, what we're shooting for. That's what I'm pushing people for. We have, where I teach, where we put, if people want to train with gloves on so they can do striking-based jiu-jitsu, we do it. You want to put the gloves on while we're rolling no-gi rounds? Do it. I always want my students to get the most out of their training. And, listen, some guys I have and some females I have will never in their life step on a competitive mat, and that is completely cool with me, as long as they can defend themselves, and that's what they're there for. So that's what we try to cultivate, that environment, so everyone's prepared to do something.
And then you took the attitude of getting better with competition, and you started MMA at 17. That sounds a little bit crazy to me. Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah,
the whole idea was I was like, man, I'm really over judo. I'm really over going to tournaments and feeling like there's another person taking away my effort by, basically going, hey, I didn't think that was a point, so I'm, not giving you the proper score or whatever. So MMA, because there was no Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu locally for me to get to. Like, there was nowhere to get to at that point. And so I'm like, I'm going to start doing MMA. I'm going to start boxing, and I'm going to start using my judo and my boxing, and I'm going to start fighting MMA. And that was really, really the next step for me, because it was results oriented, and like, it was interesting, and it was something that I had found like the the dynamics of it were more towards what I was looking for. I wanted a clear-cut winner out of the situation. I didn't want to have, again, referees and everything like that, decisions, and so on and so forth. In MMA, you see it more place. There's still garbage calls there. But back in the day, MMA, it was really, people were fighting to finish. People were fighting to finish a lot. You would say even more so than they are now. And that's not a fair statement, but taking it from that perspective back then in the late 90s, you're looking at it as like some guys don't have a ton of experience. And some guys are like, listen, I'm only a one-trick pony or whatever it is. They're like, I got to knock this guy out. Maybe the guy was just a kung fu guy or a boxing guy. He didn't have a ton of grappling experience. There wasn't a ton of cross-training going on at the time. So you would see people swinging for the fences, which is kind of, a lot more sloppy in a way. But people were going to finish because maybe they didn't have as many ways to finish. Now where MMA fighters are much more refined with much better athletes than when it first started. We have Olympians fighting MMA now. They're world champions of all walks of combat sports fighting MMA now. So you have the best of the best fighting MMA now. So everyone can strike and everyone can grapple to a competent level. But back then, like it was really like knock them out, choke them out, finish with some sort of joint lock. It was really geared towards that more than anything else. And again, like I said, at my age, that high school age, it was so visceral in me to get to that level. I was like, man, I just want to do something where it's more results based. And jiu-jitsu really wasn't huge where I was, and there was really no gyms locally, so that was the next closest thing I could do, and I could travel for it, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
You have a ton of jiu-jitsu and just combat sport experience in competition. Could you tell me what you do before you actually compete? I know you have the attitude that you want to get better from this experience, but I'd imagine you also want to do well. You want to do your best. So do you have any sort of a thing you do to help yourself get prepared, like that hour before the competition or the minutes leading up until you step on the mat?
Yeah, listen, just because I'm there prime, goal number one is to get better doesn't mean I'm not there to win.
Yeah.
Like that's, I should articulate, like that is right there. That's, if getting better is one, winning is 1A or tied for one. You know what I mean? Like we're not there to lose. Don't get me wrong. It happens, and you got to kind of mentally prepare yourself and take the positive away from that negative. But you're there to win. And what I like to do is I like to be prepared as much as possible. So I like to train as hard as possible and with goal oriented, leading up to it. But then going to the competition, what you're speaking of specifically, is I like to go and get myself physically warmed up as possible. So I like to do a lot of moving, whether it be running or just warm up. Basically, like you warm up before class. In a lot of IBJJF tournaments, which I try to that's primarily where I'm competing. Is the IBJJF circuit. They don't have many mats where you can roll to warm up. So you go through your warm-up like you would before class. You run and you do your calisthenic type of workout. But then you find one of your training partners, your teammates, and you start going through techniques. So you basically start drilling. I find that build-up of just like a normalcy, just like before you're about to train, really helps because it gets you're not only in mental status in a place that you're comfortable with, but your body also getting comfortable with the situation. It kind of knows that you're preparing to grapple. So it starts to get in that mode.
Your body has done the same thing thousands of times. You come into class, you warm up, you do a couple techniques, and then you roll. Yeah, that's how most classes seem to go. And so to do all that except for the end, instead of roll, you step on a mat and compete, which your body will feel a lot of things that are similar to that. So why take your body out of that rhythm that it's used to and just kind of run it through what it's done 1,000 times and transfer the rolling over to competing, and hopefully you'll be able to compete similar to how you could roll, if not a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell myself to try to take some of the stress off, because everyone, listen, no matter how hard the person's looking in the bull pit, they're feeling the same way you are.
Yeah.
Their anxiety level's up. They don't know what's happening. Who's this guy? If I ever compete against this person before, blah, 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 blah. To try to cut that down a little bit, I always tell myself, especially in Marcellus, this is, or just being in New York City in general, or a large city, it shouldn't keep referencing Marcellus because there's a huge, big world out there that many people visit. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of gyms that people go to. And everyone's fortunate to have visitors come through the door. And people that, you train with somebody all the time, day in, day out. You have a handful of training partners that you really like to train with. And, and you guys kind of know the rhythm. Even though we talked about, like, everyone brings something different every day, there's a little wrinkle. You guys kind of know what's going on. You know the style your buddy plays or your friend plays. Like, everyone kind of understands what's going on. But a new person comes in through the door, and you're just like, oh, this is a new person. This is interesting. This is a whole different ball of wax that I've maybe never contended with. So I tell myself, it's just like rolling with someone who came in to the gym to visit. Because realistically, there's no malice, especially as a little older black belt. Like, we're not looking at you like, I'm going to, what's going on? I'm going to kill this guy, in their head. Like, I'm going to do my best. Like, that's more or less what we're contending with. I'm going to do my best. And that's how you're looking at each other. And you're like, I'm going to do my best. And to take it down a level just to give your anxiety and your fears and to calm that quiet voice in your head that's trying to get louder. Just like being in the gym. And someone's coming in, you've never trained with before, slap hands, say good luck, and train. You're just going a little faster. And that's when you tell yourself, stick to the basics, grip fight. Tell yourself things that are verbal cues. They're going to put you in that situation. Okay, I should be grip fighting. I should be getting my head low. I should be looking for underhooks. Where are my hips? Sprawl. Just saying those things to yourself as you're preparing the stuff on the mat puts you in that headspace, and it puts you in a clear headspace, and it really puts you on the path to do your best. And again, ultimately, that's what you're there for.
Yeah, and a great example of just trying to imagine yourself back at the gym, and you have a guest that showed up, and that's what it's going to be like, a new riddle to solve. And the same experience I've had when traveling, show up at a gym that you've never been to before. Sometimes I go home or go back to the hotel feeling like I was at a tournament. Like, it was, a lot of mental and physical work to roll with these people.
Yeah, exactly. Because everyone wants to roll with the guy who's visiting. Who doesn't? Like, everyone does. Everyone wants to see, and that's what I mean. It's like that's how you have to treat tournaments. It's like you're either visiting a gym or you have visitors. That's it. And that's reality-wise, that's all it is. It's just someone you've never gone against before.
Yeah. Nothing too crazy on that. It's somebody new. Dan, what would be a good goal for a student during their first year of training?
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And a lot of people have said that, and a lot of people have said it in that way, and a lot of people have said it in different ways. But get comfortable with being uncomfortable. When you first walk into martial arts school, or jiu-jitsu school, that's what we're discussing. You're there to learn a specific set of skills, and whatever your goals are, know that you're going to be the low person on the totem pole for quite some time. You shouldn't expect much from yourself, because the lower your expectations are, the better off you're going to be in a lot of situations. So if you're just like, listen, I'm going to suck for a while, and that's okay, then it's a lot easier to go through everything that way. If you're like, I'm going to be the champion of the world when you walk in the door, and then you get absolutely smoked, you're going to have a difficult time swallowing that. But I think being comfortable with being uncomfortable, getting sweated on, getting beat up, people smashing you in weird positions, and be like, hey, should this person be doing this to me? Yeah, that's all comes with the territory. But that's what you're there for. You got to realistically ask yourself, like, hey, what am I here for? I'm here for exercise. I'm here to learn how to defend myself. And if you're getting beat up, you're gonna be like, wow, like, this is what it's like. And know that it doesn't last forever. You will get better. And the great thing about this type of activity is you will get out. I will guarantee you what you put into it. So when people sort of be like, I feel like I hit a plateau and everything like that, it's like, okay, that means just keep training. That doesn't mean that I should stop training or, change stuff. No, just keep coming. As long as you keep showing up, you're good to go. Like, that's the biggest thing. Learn to be consistent. Learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you can come to terms with those two things, like, even if you get banged up a little bit, like, let's say someone pulls a hamstring in the first, they really can't go live. Okay, come and drill. Just take the class and go right up to the point where everyone trains live. Or let's say it's a little more serious than that. Say you broke a finger or something like that, can't make any grips, right? So you really can't even drill or something, whatever the situation is. Come and watch practice. Stay in the rhythm of coming to practice. Be involved. Be happy that you have a positive, hopefully the gym is a positive place to go with people who are friendly, who are excited to see you. Your coaches are excited to see you. They're there. They want you there. They honestly want you there. Like, there's a lot of good people out there doing good things with jiu-jitsu, and you would be surprised that just showing up makes their day better too. Like, saying, hey man, it's great. I'm happy you're here. I know you got kids. I know you got a spouse at home, or I know you're busy at work. I'm happy you made time to come in here and spend some time with us. Like, everyone is excited no matter what the situation is. Come and use your time no matter what it is, and just get used to getting beat up. It's a perfect way to go about life. Always show up and get ready to get beat up. Because if you're ready in those two situations, you're good to go.
That's great advice, and for anybody who's new or experienced at jiu-jitsu, I think that holds strong for anybody. Thinking back, what was frustrating for you at the beginning when you started training jiu-jitsu?
Getting used to people with gripping sequences, right? Like, especially in the gi. Everyone talks about that, and maybe even more so now than ever. There's people playing specific types of guards with grabbing lapels and then putting underneath legs, and there's a lot of different inventive ways of gripping, and in the gi, that can be really frustrating. People aren't used to that, and they're not used to having their body covered in cotton full of, and as soon as it gets wet, they can really get a good grip on. That's really frustrating. People are like, I can't, like, you hear that a lot. I hear that from these students of mine. They're just like, I can't get out. I feel like I'm having a hard time with this, and it's really frustrating. You always hear them say that. It's like, okay, that's totally understandable. Like, I'm not here to say that, like, that's not, like, yeah, of course, that's tough. I felt the same way, and that was the hardest thing for me. But at the same time, like, there's a way to stop that, and they look at you and like, what? And it's like, you got to grip fight before they get those grips. So, like, there's a way you can prevent that, and like, that was kind of what like the light bulb that went off in my head. I was like, well, instead of complaining about the person grabbing this, that, or like, why don't I grip fight prior to it? And, those little things like that, that's how I overcame that really frustrating situation. It's like, really become like aggressive with grip fighting. Anytime you reach for your grip and then just really getting after it. And that was hard for me, but there's always a way to overcome something. And that's, as a coach, that's what you should be pushing people towards. You should be wanting that feedback, and you should be giving the problem-solving way of helping your students out. Like, you shouldn't just be like, well, you should just do this. Or you can say, it could be as simple as just, hey, do this. It could be that simple. But sometimes they just need to hear it. And as a new person, you need to advocate for yourself. Don't allow yourself to walk away frustrated. Ask somebody who is more experienced than you. Because you'll be surprised, even if it's someone just a little more experienced than you. You're not expecting them to teach you like the instructor. But maybe that blue belt on the mat who's been there for a year and a half was just coming out of that phase that's really frustrating you. And maybe they have something that is right on the tip of their tongue that would be beneficial to you. Like, hey, I don't know. And listen, the great thing about someone more experienced, probably standing 10 feet away, that could probably answer it, and probably could answer both your questions. So just be prepared to advocate for yourself. Don't let yourself walk away frustrated. That will just perpetuate that situation, and then you'll find yourself, being angry for no reason, because it's not somewhere to be angry. You should be having a good time.
That's great advice. Just asking somebody a question. It doesn't need to be the best person in the room. There's tons of knowledge in each one of the people on the mat there with you. And I'm trying to just think about all the people who go home to watch a video, which is okay, to go watch a video to try to solve their problem, versus ask somebody who knows your game, who has experience with what you do, a question about what to do. Those are two big different things. Both can get you results, but I think so many times you just don't ask the question. People go home and try to figure it out for themselves, and there's so much potential on the mat with you. Just asking your friends and your teammates, your coaches, what you should be doing differently or how to improve is a great way to get like personal advice from a very qualified person.
Most certainly. And the other thing I would say is, like, don't be afraid of asking the highest level person in the room either. Sometimes they might be inundated with questions, and there's a wait. But it might be worth the wait to ask that person the question, or they might seem like a little standoffish or aloof or something like that. But the person just might be trying to rush from one thing to the next. You don't know. Just ask them. Like, ask them eventually, and you'd be surprised. They're typically the person that's right there to answer it, and they'll probably try to walk you through it until you get it right. So don't sweat it. Ask anybody and everybody. Like, that is the beauty of jiu-jitsu, the way that I see it. We've toned down. We're kind of like we're like a whole parallel universe away from that feudal Japan, bowing, like, to a certain extent, calling people a traditional, like sensei and so on. Like, we move towards more like a coaching type of situation. I tell my students, call me coach or Dan. Like, it's no necessary. It's not necessary for sir or anything else. It's, like, a lot of jiu-jitsu coaches are like that. The formalities are kind of gone. They're trying to break down those barriers, so it is a lot easier to troubleshoot for their students. And take advantage of that. Take advantage of that, 100%.
And that's just the way things are changing, or almost a level of customer service that's being provided to the students and willing to help them out. What would be a good way for someone to get a hold of you? Or to follow
social
you?
Media is a really good way. I was having a really big issue with my Facebook Messenger for a while there on my phone. I think that's been corrected, but my email is my first name Dan and my last name Koval 1 @yahoo.com. Yes, I still use Yahoo. There's also a Gmail account. I think it's Dan Koval JJ @gmail.com. Like, I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and the whole gamut. Everyone.
Yeah.
If you're involved in this sport now, you have to be. Like, you don't, like, it's self-marketing. Like, when you're providing information to people, and I post techniques once a week, sometimes more than once a week, and giving people information about what my sponsors are doing in terms of the new products and new things and what I'm doing seminar-wise and competition-wise. Like, that stuff's all out there. So that I'm very involved in that. I'm very plugged into that. It's email, social media. I'm always readily available there, and I try. And I'm not one of those people that, like, 2 months from now with a one-word response. If you message me about something, I'll go back and forth for as long as possible, whatever it is.
All right, well, that's great, and I'll put, the big ones, the Facebook page and Instagram, those sort of things. I'll put links to that in the show notes so people can follow you and watch you, kind of follow along with you as you go through your journey.
Hey, thanks.
Do you have any final thoughts for the audience?
Just train. Be consistent. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're training, whomever you're training with, be appreciative of the fact that the person's putting the effort out there. They want you there. You show up. It's a great cycle because your teammates can't get better unless you get better and vice versa. And the only way anyone gets better is when they show up on a consistent basis. That's my spiel every time at practice for my students, and it seems to pay off for them. And I think if people keep that in mind, that this isn't a singular sport. Like, you can't go and just shoot hoops and get better. You really do need other people to get better as well. To get better, you need that iron sharpens iron whole situation. I really think you should take that to heart, and anytime you can make it to practice, even if you don't feel well, you always feel better after training. Go train. Be consistent. Enjoy it. It's not going to last forever, so enjoy it as much as possible.
All right. That's outstanding. I thank you very much, Dan, for the interview. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the time.
I'd like to thank Dan Koval for taking the time and sharing some knowledge with us and all of our listeners. You can just tell from the interview that, Dan's just a happy guy, and you can understand why he's so successful. He's just a great personality. But one thing that really stood out to me is, actually a couple things that stood out to me, but one of them, he was talking about his medals. When he competes and he gets a medal, he just brings it home and puts it in a drawer. He doesn't, he just goes on from there. He's, hey, I don't dwell on my past victories. I'm moving forward. And the other thing, too, was starting MMA at 17. He was a little upset with Judo and just decided in MMA, nobody's going to, take points away from me here. It's, if I punch you or I do this, I'm getting it. So just a great interview, and we appreciate Dan for taking the time to talk to us.
Yep, very nice of him, and look forward to getting back with him sometime and giving him back on. I would hope sometime before too much time passes by.
Yep, and don't forget, I know Byron talked about it earlier, but Dan's DVD, Black Magic Closed Guard. If you just look on, I just Googled it here, on SureDog, there's some great reviews for it. Like Byron and I, we haven't seen it yet, but we're definitely going to check it out. So check out his DVD.
Yep.
And Closed Guard is, something we could all work on.
Yep. So simple. So is one of the tenets of closed guard is a guard that you show somebody usually at the beginning of their jiu-jitsu career, but black belts use it, and it's still a devastating position to be stuck in. It's such a strong spot to use, and I think in today's day and age, if you're looking for something that would maybe catch people off guard, they're not ready for. Everybody's training, getting rid of, dealing with De La Riva hooks and butterfly. Closed guard, I think it's maybe a little overlooked. So maybe give you an edge. You kind of going, a little old school, and learning from Dan here, he's gonna help that game out. That's for sure. I feel that was a 5-star performance by Dan this week with the interview. Little audio glitches here and there. I don't know what's up with that. We'll definitely look into that, and I think it was just a Skype glitch, and we'll get past that for next time for sure. But hopefully you got some value out of that, and one way you could show us that is go to iTunes, wherever you download this podcast. Usually iTunes is the biggest one, and write us a review. We appreciate a good funny review. We'll oftentimes read it online or on the air and share that with everybody. But just tell everybody what the show's about to you, and hopefully we've earned a 5-star review, and that helps us with the rankings and letting people know about us. So very much thanks is given to those who write reviews.
And it also gets you in the running for the Reviewer of the Year. So every year we pick the top reviewer, and we read it online. So we vote, and so you need to. You'll be the second one if you get it for this year. So definitely put some thought into it.
Gary, last week and this week were both articles provided by us by the listeners, either wrote or sent us an article. So let's do that again. If you write an article for a blog or your own website or whatever, and you're a fan of the show and you think it would be a good fit, send us that article, bjjbrick@gmail.com, or send it through the Facebook fan page there, and we would be thrilled to present it online if it's, or I said online again, we'd be thrilled to present it on air if it's a good fit for us. And that's just a great way to get a little bit of press for your website maybe, and get us talking about the topic that you're passionate about, I hope.
And the best part about it is, it benefits Byron and I, is we do not have to go look for an article online. So it's basically handed to us. So sometimes we can get a little bit lazy. We might be training a little too much and don't have a ton of time. So kill two birds with one stone. There's more than one way to skin a horse.
Again. Oh, Gary.
If you listened to last week, Byron was bullying me when I said that.
Maybe there's more than one way to shoe a horse. Put those shoes on.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Next week, I want to tell you guys, before we get into Gary's audiobook, we've got an interview with Marshall Carper. He's just a mind in jiu-jitsu, basically. He's got Artichoke Media. He writes for different publications, and he's done a ton in jiu-jitsu. Look him up or check out our interview next week. It's a fun time, and we'll learn about him, and we'll get his opinions on a lot of things. So next week's interview is getting prepared right now, my friends.
Yep, so we really appreciate you tuning in this week, and we hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, whoa, Gary. That was, you're trying to get out of here. Gary's trying to avoid his segment of his audiobook, which I don't blame him. It's a tough segment to do. He's got to think on the spot. But first, let's have Claudio go, and we'll listen to me learn a little bit of Portuguese, and hopefully my friends out there with us in their earbuds will also follow along and learn a little bit of Portuguese. So maybe you're traveling to Brazil, or maybe it's just a distant dream of yours, but a few words in Portuguese might come in handy. We started this segment last week. This is part 2 of this. Claudia will teach us basic saying goodbye. So we'll go ahead and air that. Tutu bem, Claudio. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hey, thank you. Tudo bem, e você? Now it's getting complicated, huh?
Yes, I'm already overwhelmed here. If you missed us last week, we're now saying hello and hi to each other, basically, right?
That's correct. And you're doing good. You've been practicing. I can see that. So you're doing excellent, my friend. Today we're going to go on a little bit extra here. So we learned last week that was oi is a nice greeting. How are you? And tudo bem. And then you're just responding as tudo bem again. And today it's going to be a goodbye. So there are two different words we can use. The first one is adeus. It's goodbye. It's adeus. And the second one is just a little more simple, 2 words, até mais. So the first one, let's go with that one. Adeus. It's A-D-E-U-S. And it's a goodbye, just a simple goodbye. So if you're going away, say adeus.
Adeus.
Or, yeah, there you go. Or you can use ciao. A lot of different languages use that. To even some in U.S. here, I see people saying ciao if they have a little Italian background. So that's another one you can use for goodbye. And that second one I was saying is até mais. It's basically see you soon. So 2 words, até.
Até.
Second word, mais.
Mais.
So até mais.
Até mais.
Very good. Excellent.
I'm kind of picturing like chemistry and breaking things down to the atoms. Atomize.
Atomize, yeah. Atomize. There you go.
Atomize.
Great. Yeah. Very, very good. Very good.
And the other one was adeus?
That's a good, simple one.
Adeus. Okay.
Atomize. And then the usual ciao that you see a little more frequently. And we use that a lot in Brazil, too, is ciao.
Okay.
So that's a simple one.
If I'm going to Because was it atomized was like kind of see you later? If I just want to say goodbye like every time, and I may not see people again, would that be not the correct one to learn or to say?
Yeah, atomized it's a good one.
Okay.
To learn. It's like see you soon or see you later, something like that. It's a good one. I would stick to that one. Adeus, we don't use a whole lot. It's, you see a lot more in written, like in books or something like that. But it's on a day-to-day, you just use, até mais or ciao or something like that.
So when you start, refresh from last week, you can say oi or hola or tudo bem.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're leaving, you could say até mais or adeus or ciao.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So say, olá, Byron, tudo bem?
Olá, Claudio, tudo bem?
Tudo bem.
That's a question. I have to have a question on it. Tudo bem?
Yeah, I'm answering with that question, like we said last week. Tudo bem? That's the question, and then I answer, yeah, tudo bem. I'm going away, so goodbye or adeus or até mais.
Okay. Is adios acceptable as well?
Yeah.
For goodbye?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We've got a lot of options.
That's the thing about Portuguese. You have a lot of different options. Well, English too. You have a different slangs, and depending on the part of the country you are, you will see a lot of different slangs and phrases that people use. So we'll just stick with the basics.
Yeah, that'll get you by a lot of times in jiu-jitsu as well, the basics.
Exactly.
All right, well, we'll catch you next week. Até mais, Claudio.
Até mais, Brian. You have a good day.
You too. All right, well, thank Claudio one more time. That's a second segment. Next week, we'll learn basic please and thank you. It's good to be polite, and that goes a long way, and a smile does as well. But Claudio will help us out if you're interested in traveling to Brazil or anywhere they speak Portuguese. It should be very helpful. And also, all of these language learning segments I threw them together in one long, basically like a video that's on YouTube. Go to our YouTube channel. You can find it there. There you go. So you could study that way instead of waiting every week or saving every episode and listen to a little snippet a couple of times. It might be a little easier to learn on YouTube.
Yeah, the crazy thing is we've been getting a lot of messages about this part of the podcast, and people have really been loving this, learning a little bit here from Claudio. And I'll read this one review I've got right here from, it was emailed to us, and it just says by C, the letter C. It doesn't say, give us a name, but it said, man, I'm really loving Claudio's segment. The guy is just incredible. He's awesome. And please, for the rest of your podcast, if you guys could stop talking and just have Claudio do everything, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you, C. So whoever C is, really likes Claudio.
Yeah, but the email is from Claudio@gmail.com.
That was Claudio.
Dang, man.
Oh.
See, he tried to trick us, buddy.
Yeah, well, he tricked me. I would have.
Oh, hey, if you want to send us an email, that'd be great. That's how you would send it to our Gmail address. Anyway, I think we mentioned that. Gary, you're trying to change the topic as usual. He has not been working hard on this, but he soon will come up with the audiobook to help us out. He's blending his lifetime of driving experience and his lifetime of jiu-jitsu experience, and he's got a book coming out called Defensive Driving, Offensive Driving, Driving Over the Neighbor's Fensive. How to stay safe on the road.
Well, if you've watched my jiu-jitsu game, you will understand there's no defensive in this. It's 100% offensive. I don't agree with defensive jiu-jitsu, defensive driving. I'm going to take that. I'm going 100% offense. So, I'm going to go right over the neighbor's fence if I have to. I'm going to I'm going to gun it. It's all about the offense. That's the most important thing. We're just going to put the pedal to the metal and just keep going. That's what's the most important thing. And I'm going to teach you how to drive while texting, how to drive while eating, how to drive while talking on the phone, how to drive, when looking in the back seat, how to drive when changing out of your jiu-jitsu gi.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different chapters here, and it's a really, really important subject. And I guarantee you, you could once you complete the class, this is the best thing about it. This book is only going to cost you $35 US if you buy it. But the good thing is, I'm going to send you a certificate after there's a test at the end, and then you just have to complete the test and get a grade 70 or above. But the best part about it is, once you get that, you're going to get your certificate. You can give that to your insurance company, Progressive, State Farm, whoever it is, and there's a good chance they're going to lower your rates because you're such an offensive driver. So, it's, win-win for you. Not only do you get a good book and learn how to drive, but hopefully you save a little bit of money.
Wow, Gary, this is quite the book here. I didn't realize what you would get into. I would say don't drive any of these methods that Gary mentioned, texting, eating, reading a book. You can listen to a podcast, I suppose. That's probably pretty safe. But don't take any of the other ones. Don't do that unless you've heard Gary's book. Because I can tell you what, this book probably won't even happen.
That's probably why my book, the National Transportation Safety Board will probably put an end to this thing before it comes out.
I know. To me, it's a free speech issue, Gary. I mean, you should be able to publish any book you want to, no matter how crappy it's going to be.
yeah, free speech issue. Hey, good one, Byron.
But, this will be an interesting book. I bet there'll be protest lines, from here to there. But, Gary, you're in the car, buddy.
Thank you. You're the man.
This is going to be terrible. So, I can tell you, everybody, Gary's a safe driver. And he's going to share those skills with you. But evidently his teaching style's going to be a little different there.
Yes.
So anyway, it's been a lot of fun. We had an interesting author of a quote. Great interview.
Yep. And then we also had we read the review from C. C sent us a review. So we had a great show.
Yeah, and if you want to send us an article, we can, of course, send us one. We'd love that. If you're in Wichita, Kansas, it's in the middle of the country, basically, of the United States, send us an email or Facebook message. We'd be happy to train with you if it's at all possible. It's always a good time to train with the listeners.
And if you happen to actually be visiting Kansas and you see a black Honda Accord driving really offensive, get out of its way.
You'll know it by the hand gestures he's dishing out.
Yeah, and the BJJ stickers in the back window.
That's right. Well, as always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.